Good to be with you. I'm Tony DeCopel in Detroit. The breaking news right now.
Hi. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Our exclusive interview with President Trump. As Ford F-150s roll off the assembly line behind us, we ask about everything. The economy.
We have now the hottest country in the world, and a year and a half ago, our country was dead.
In Iran, the killing of protesters and reports of planned public executions.
We will take very strong action.
And our new reporting on the death of Renee Nicole Good.
There are a couple of versions of that tape that are very, very bad.
Also, the investigation into Fed Chair Jerome Powell.
He's either corrupt or incompetent.
And what the president told me about the Constitution and his own morality. And we're here in the heart of the Motor City with the history-making CEO of America's largest automaker on tariffs, EVs, and what her factories are telling us about the American economy right now.
I think 26 will be an even better year than 25.
Live from America, this is the CBS Evening News with Tony DeCopel, reporting tonight from Detroit.
Good evening. We are just back from that exclusive conversation with the president, coming to you live right now inside the newly built General Motors global headquarters, not far from the Detroit Economic Club, where earlier today, President Trump gave that speech on the economy, declaring, quote, the Trump economic boom has officially begun. We met him just before that in nearby Dearborn, Michigan, as he toured a Ford F-150 plant. And in the time it takes for about a dozen trucks to roll off the assembly line behind us, we talked about the big news overseas, what matters most to Americans, and what, if anything, limits the president, other than his morality and his mind, here at home. Here is that conversation in its entirety. Mr. President, thank you very much for doing this. We really appreciate it. We're standing here on an active Ford assembly line, a little bit loud, incredible symbol of American manufacturing power. And I've got a lot of questions about it. But I actually want to start overseas with Iran. Americans woke up this morning and they saw that you said help is on the way.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, there's a lot of help on the way, and in different forms, including economic help from our standpoint, and we're not going to help Iran very much. And, you know, we put Iran out of business with their nuclear capacity, and now, depending on what's actually happening, nobody's been able to give us accurate numbers about how many people they've killed.
Well, on that point,
it looks
Mr.
like
President,
it could be a pretty substantial number, and that's going to be a lot of problems for them.
A lot of problems. On that point, you did say the U.S. would get involved if Iran started killing protesters. They have, by the many thousands, according to reports.
Well, we'll see what that is. I've heard two numbers, but we'll see what that is.
Well, now we're hearing that they're going to start hanging protesters tomorrow. So it comes back to the question, have they crossed your red line, or has the line moved?
I haven't heard about the hanging. If they hang them, you're going to see some things that I don't know what where you come from and what your thought process is, but you'll perhaps be very happy.
What do you mean by that?
We will take very strong action. If they do such a thing, we will take very strong action.
And this strong action you're talking about, what's the end game?
The end game is to win. I like winning.
How do you define that in Iran?
Well, let's define it in Venezuela. Let's define it with al-Baghdadi. He was wiped out. Let's define it with Soleimani. And let's define it in Iran, where he wiped out their Iran nuclear threat in a period of about 15 minutes once the B-2s got there. And that was a complete obliteration, as it turns out, which is what I said initially. Then some questioned it, and they said, you know, Trump was right. So we've been right about everything. We don't want to see what's happening in Iran happen. And, you know, if they want to have protests, that's one thing. When they start killing thousands of people, and now you're telling me about hanging, we'll see how that works out for them. It's not going to work out good.
There's so much going on overseas. Understandably, a lot of your focus has been on other countries. But when I talk to Americans, when I talk to your own voters, they want your focus to be on them, and they feel like it may be drifting. What do you have to say to them?
Well, Tony, we have the strongest economy maybe in the history of our country. If you went around this plant like I have, they just announced they're going to 24 hours. This is a Ford plant, but GM's the same, Stellantis is the same. They're going 24 hours all around the clock. They're enlarging every plant in this country. We're building more plants in the country than we've ever built. There's no inflation. You saw the inflation numbers. Inflation's very low.
It seems bad on groceries.
Our growth numbers are through the roof. Our job numbers are tremendous. We have the highest stock market we've ever had. Today, we hit every day for the last, I think, 48 times out of 11 months. 48 days out of 11 months, we've had the #1 stock market in the history of our country. So my big focus is here. But you can't be forgetting about bad threats. You can't be forgetting about an Iran with a nuclear weapon. You can't forget that there's tremendous wealth in the Middle East, and a lot of that wealth is coming over here to build plants. Saudi Arabia is giving us $2 trillion. Qatar is giving us $2 trillion. UAE is giving us $2 trillion. All of that is for the good of this country. So my focus is very much on this country, but you can't lose sight of the fact that we need peace all over the world. I've ended 8 wars. If we had those 8 wars raging, it would be very bad for this country.
Mr. President, you mentioned the market there. I've got a question that might affect the markets. It's the Jerome Powell situation. He's the Fed chair. I know you've said you had nothing to do with the investigation, the criminal probe into him, but you have been criticizing him for most of the last year. And even some prominent conservatives say it looks like political retribution.
And some prominent conservatives also love it. So, you got to mention them.
What do you say to that accusation?
As you grow older in this position, you have to mention the other side. More people like it than not. He's been a lousy Fed chairman. He was reappointed by Biden. I was a little surprised at that because I didn't think he really earned a stretch. He's been too high on interest rates, and I call him too late. He's too late to reduce. He should have reduced them by more. Despite that, we fought through that. In addition, he heads up a construction situation on a rebuilding of a little building, 2 little buildings called the Fed. Yeah. You know where they are. You've seen them a million times. Yeah. I think I could have done that job. I could have fixed them up for $25 million. He's into billions and billions of dollars, and it looks like they won't open for a long time. And he's either corrupt or incompetent.
So on the question of corrupt or incompetent, you're right. Some prominent conservatives are criticizing this. I'll take your word that others are not.
You don't have to take my word. What you should do is go out and interview some people, and you'll find out.
But on this direct question about political retribution, what it looks like, sir, what's your response?
I can't help what it looks like. Look, I've created the greatest economy maybe in history, and you're seeing that now. Plants are being built all over the country. We've never had anything like it. They're leaving Canada. They're leaving Mexico. They're leaving Japan and all over Europe, Germany, all over Europe. They're coming in. Bill Ford Motor Company, he just told me that he's never seen anything like what's happened. I also freed up some of the environmental nonsense, which made it virtually impossible to build a car, and certainly to build a car for the right cost. And they're doing better than they've ever done. AI, we're leading China by a lot. We're leading China by a tremendous amount. We're leading everybody at everything. And then we had a big victory. I would say that even you would say that. We had a big victory with Venezuela. We had a big victory with Iran. We have a lot of victories. We don't have any defeats, and I want to keep it that way.
I've got an important question about the situation in Minnesota, the death of Renee Nicole Good. I've been speaking to her father, who is a big supporter of yours, like many Americans are. But he's heartbroken right now.
I can understand that.
He's heartbroken because his daughter is dead. That's obvious. He's also heartbroken because your administration so quickly has come out and said she's a domestic terrorist. What do you want to say to her father right now?
Well, I want to say to the father that I love all of our people. They can be on the other side. As you say, he might be on my side.
He is on your side.
And I think that's great. And I do. I think it's great. And I would bet you that she, under normal circumstances, was a very solid, wonderful person. But, her actions were pretty tough. I mean, I've seen it many ways and many different shapes and forms. But the bottom line is, look, we have hundreds of thousands of murderers in our countries, killers. ICE is trying to get them out. They were let in through an open border policy of Sleepy Joe Biden. ICE is working very hard to get them out. Their job is being made very, very difficult. And, when you look at that tape, it can be viewed 2 ways, I guess. But when you look at the way that car was pulled away, there are a couple of versions of that tape that are very, very bad.
I want to talk about the economy while we have you here. The inflation numbers came out. Overall, not bad, but grocery prices.
No, overall, very good. Good for us. Good for our country. Joe Biden had the highest inflation numbers in history, correct?
The direction.
I have them down to a level that they haven't seen in about 9 years.
And Mr. President, help me understand. When I travel the country and I go all over the place and I talk to everyday Americans, they tell me they don't feel it because grocery prices
they might not,
are up.
But they're going to now. I've only been here for 11 months, okay? And, the first few months were really rough, if you look at them, because I inherited a mess. I inherited a mess of crime. I inherited a mess of inflation. I inherited a mess of places closing up and going to other countries. And now we have the hottest country in the world. Tony, we have now the hottest country in the world. And a year and a half ago, our country was dead. We had a dead country. You wouldn't have a job right now. If she got in, you probably wouldn't have a job right now. Your boss, who's an amazing guy, might be bust. Okay?
Might be
That's
what?
how bad. Might be bust. I doubt it in his case, but you never know. Let me just tell you, you wouldn't have this job. You wouldn't have this job, certainly whatever the hell they're paying you. Our country is rocketing right now. We have the hottest country in the world. If they got in, we would be Venezuela on steroids.
Mr. President, I'm just trying to be fair here, just trying to do my job, and I want to talk about this assembly line here.
To me, it's vibrant. Listen to the sound.
It's incredible, right?
I love the sound of an assembly line.
It's incredible. But they've got one not far from here. They just idled the electric vehicle plant.
Well, yeah, but it's going to gasoline vehicles.
Yeah, it's going to go to gasoline.
Well, but why don't you say that, Tony? You can't say.
You didn't give me a chance. I'm coming there. I'm coming around.
I agree. I said I want electric and I want gasoline and I want hybrids. I want everything. But you were going to be forced under the mandate to buy an electric car in a very short period of time. I didn't want that, and I ended that. Now people can have electric, they can have gasoline, they can have hybrid.
But are they going to have people to build these cars? The CEO of Ford said not long ago he's got 5,000 open mechanic jobs. He can't find people willing and able to build them.
That's a good thing, Tony. That means it's vibrant. You could also have things where you have so many people and they can't get jobs. It's true. We are doing so well, it's hard. Now, what's going to happen is people are being trained rapidly, and you're going to have a thing called robots. And robots are going to be a big factor. I predict
let's talk about that.
Robots are going to be a big factor in the future, and it's going to help out. But you have a situation now where our economy is doing so well that it's not that easy to get people. We're training people, they're training people, companies are training people, and they're doing well.
Why do you think
that's a positive question you asked me. I don't think you asked it in that way, but we are doing so well right now that we're training people to take those jobs. One other thing, we terminated many federal jobs. Because that's a good thing, because they want to go private. The way you make our country great is you can't have too many federal workers, all right? Those workers are being trained to go into the private sector at a much higher salary.
Yeah, well, let's talk about robotics for a second, because that's a concern of a lot of people working, not only here, but all over the country. What is the future for jobs like these? One guy told me on the way in, he thinks it's a critical threat to his industry.
Well, in one light, you're telling me that you can't get workers.
Well, that's what the CEO said.
Well, you said that, and then you said the opposite. You can't have it both ways. Look, we're going to need help because we're expanding so rapidly that we need people are going to make a lot of money. A skilled worker, a person with talent, education in what they do, not education in nuclear physics, education in what they do. They're going to make a lot of money. Federal workers are leaving the federal government where you had 10 people for every job, and they're going out and they're going into the private sector at 2 and 3 times the salary. And you see that all over. So I only say this. I think that robotics are going to be great because this country won't have enough people if we don't have it. Our people are going to be trained, and they're going to make more money than they've ever made before.
Last question, I think you'll be. I was very interested in a comment you made recently about nothing being able to limit your action overseas except for your own morality and your own mind. I'd like to take that same question and apply it here in the U.S. Is there anything that limits your power, your movement, your action here other than your own morality?
Well, I talk about morality. I'm a moral person. I don't like seeing death. I don't like seeing our people hurt. I don't like seeing the other side hurt either. When we went into Venezuela, we lost nobody, but a lot of people on the other side were killed. I don't like that. Somebody else would say, oh, that's wonderful. I don't like that. So, yeah, it's limited by my morality, and I have a very high grade of morality, so therefore it's limited.
Not the Constitution, not the courts? That's what I thought you were going to say.
Well, the Constitution and courts, that goes without saying. But you're asking me what really can stop? We'll never get to the courts. We'll never get to the Constitution because I want to see what's good for our country. And you know what? The courts want to see that, too.
Yeah. Mr. President, thank you very much. For the record, I do think I'd have this job, even if the other guys won.
Yeah, but at a lesser salary. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Still ahead on the CBS Evening News from Detroit, resignations following the fatal shooting of Renee Good. What's prompting prosecutors to step down? And later, our exclusive interview with Mary Barra, the CEO of General Motors, when we return live from the Motor City. There are reports tonight out of Iran that at least 12,000 people and possibly as many as 20,000 have been killed in the regime's crackdown on anti-government protests. Elizabeth Palmer in London has the details.
There was intermittent cell service again today in Iran, and information is trickling out about thousands of protesters killed by security forces. Here you can see Tehrani's looking through bullet-riddled bodies in the medical examiner's compound, searching for loved ones. We counted roughly 400 dead here. Contacts in Iran also tell us that security forces are threatening hospital staff to turn over the names and addresses of wounded protesters. And one protester is due to be executed tomorrow. Tony?
Elizabeth Palmer for us. Elizabeth, thank you very much. Here at home, CBS News has learned at least 6 prosecutors in the Minnesota U.S. Attorney's Office are resigning, along with at least 6 in the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. Several of them citing the Trump administration's actions following the fatal shooting of Renee Good last week by an ICE agent in Minneapolis. According to multiple sources, the prosecutors were asked to investigate Good's widow and treat the case as an assault on a federal officer rather than a violation of Good's civil rights. We'll be back in a moment. We are broadcasting tonight from the new global headquarters of General Motors, where earlier today, CEO Mary Barra showed me around the place. It just opened yesterday. She is the first woman to lead a major U.S. automaker and has been for more than a decade now. Among other things, I asked her about the billions of dollars both GM and Ford have lost recently on electric vehicles. Let's talk about electric vehicles. In the news a lot lately. It seems like the industry, like many industries, took a big swing and it didn't work out. What happened?
Well, I wouldn't say it didn't work out. I think we're on a journey to get to electric vehicles. We're still committed. But I also think, when we looked at the regulatory requirements, we were getting a little ahead of the consumer. And this is a vehicle is such a big purchase for a consumer. For many of them, it's the most expensive thing that they buy, that we have to stay aligned with the consumer. So I think we're on a good path. I think as there's more charging infrastructure, as we continue to get the cost of batteries down, I think consumers will pick an electric vehicle because they're better.
On the affordability question, how much did tariffs hurt your ability to offer low prices, and how much did tariffs eat into your profits?
Well, it had a few $billion-dollar impact last year. We made changes. Wow. We made changes that was unmitigated. We also made some shifts to our footprint, so we're going to be actually assembling more vehicles here. We worked with the administration, and they took the time to understand our industry to make sure there wasn't unintended consequences so that we could still compete with some of the vehicles coming from other countries. So I think it was a shift that we're working through to get back, but I think 26 will be an even better year than 25. And I think the playing field is a bit more level than it was just 18 months ago.
You're in the kind of industry that is often an early indicator for where the overall economy is going. You hear a lot of pessimism out there. Consumer sentiments are way down. Are you seeing a change in car buying habits that could be an early sign of trouble on the economy? This
is something we watch almost on a weekly basis because I was asked this question a lot all through 25. And as we get into 26, we really aren't seeing it. We think the market's going to be about the same as it was last year. And again, with the vehicles that we have, the portfolio that's really strong, we're looking to continue to grow share this year as well.
We'll be right back. We are not even 2 weeks now into the new year, and it feels like a decade has passed. The U.S. captured Venezuela's former president, Nicolas Maduro. Reports are that as many as 12,000 protesters have been killed by Iran's government as Trump weighs intervention. Anti-ICE protesters have taken to the streets of Minneapolis after the shooting death of Renee Nicole Good. And tonight, we walked into not one but 2 exclusive news-making conversations. The CEO of General Motors on the future of American-made cars, and the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, on the questions that matter most. You may not agree with everything you hear on this broadcast, but we trust you to listen, and we trust you to decide for yourself. And that's another day in America. I'm Tony DeCopel, live from Detroit. Thank you to GM for this absolutely beautiful location tonight. And Chicago, here's looking at you. We'll see you tomorrow live on the CBS Evening News.